welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video you are getting a partial thrift to treasure and a DIY. So I am using the new Ginger and Spice mold from IOD, and you guys, I am absolutely loving this. So I cannot wait to show you what I've created today. And if you do attend my lives or have thought about joining me on a live, every Monday and Wednesday, I do go live, Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time and Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So on Monday, I have another project that I am going to be using this mold with, along with the cozy stamp from last year. So I hope you guys can join me for that. But let's get going on today's video. I can't wait to hear what you all think.
Here's the mold, Ginger and Spice, and you guys, look at all that detail. And I love how it's a little gingerbread family. For all the projects today, I'm using amazing casting resin. Because I have to pour so many of these little gingerbread men, it would have taken me forever to use the IOD clay. This is just a 50-50 mixture of each part. I also love using these silicone cups. All of that will be in the description below for the amazing casting resin and the silicone cups. It is so easy though using those cups, because after the leftover stuff in there dries, you just pull it out and you can reuse them. Now once you mix it, or once you pour 50-50, you mix for about a minute and then you start pouring it into each of the molds, and it sets up within 10 minutes. It is super fast and easy. Because I actually casted so many, it actually took me many minutes. Now that the 10 minutes is up, they are ready to release from the mold. They are still a little pliable at this point, so if you do want to put them on a surface that is not completely flat, you would definitely want to do it now when they're bendable. Otherwise, if you wait overnight, they do completely stiffen in that flat position, and it would be much more difficult to apply it to a surface that is not perfectly flat. Now that I've poured all my gingerbread men, let's start with project 1. We are going to create a sign, so I just had a scrap board. I am using vintage linen from DIY Paint. I am also using one of the gingerbread men, and in today's video, all the supplies that I am using you can find on my website at www.sonnetsgardenblooms.com. For this sign, what we're doing is I'm applying one even coat of vintage linen to the board. I'm going to let it dry. While that's drying, we're going to tackle the little gingerbread man. I want to create a color that reminds me of a gingerbread man, and I'm like, what colors can I use from DIY Paint to try to replicate the look of that? I am using a little bit of prairie gray. I'm using a little bit of sandy blonde. And then finally at the end, I add in a bit of summer crush. And if you look at a gingerbread man, he looks a little toasty roasty. And I think that that summer crush added that little bit of orangey look that gingerbread men have. I don't know if I completely nailed this color, but I still like the way they all turned out. Now let's tackle the body of the gingerbread man first. I found that using a really fine tip paintbrush works the best because there's a lot of detail on all of the gingerbread men. So first and foremost, I started with his feet, I did his hands, and then his head. I let that dry, and then I started tackling his body, and I completely forgot to hit record when I started painting his pants and his buttons. And that is the custom color that I recently created on a live. But the bow tie itself, I am using Marquee from DIY, and again, that fine tip paintbrush just makes it so easy. I had tried a couple other size paintbrushes, and it's really the really fine tip ones work perfect. Now let's start adding some detail to his face. I'm using that little black dress for his eyes. After that dries, I just take a little dot of white to add a little eyeball. Then I'm using petticoat pink just to make him look like he's blushing a bit. Then I take little black dress and I touch up the little strings on his buttons. And there's so many beautiful details on all these molds that you can really highlight with all different colors. When using DIY paint, you do need to seal it, so I am using liquid patina. I want to add glitter to him, and I thought liquid patina would be the perfect medium for that. Unfortunately, the glitter I used was really heavy, thick glitter, and I think honestly I should have lightly liquid patinaed him and possibly used a different type of glitter. Let's tackle the sign now. So I am going to use letterpress and I am also going to use farmhand to create this sign. I want the sign to say, "Oh snap." So I am using one of the fonts from letterpress for the O and the H, and then the snap, I'm going to use the farmhand. Now that I have my letters all laid out how I want them, I am taking a chunk of a thin mound and I'm going to pick up the letters, flip it over. I'm using tomato, which I think is a perfect red for the holidays, and I'm going to ink my letters up and then I'm going to stamp with it. All of the IOD inks are permanent, so once you place them on an item, they will be there permanently. Now that my gingerbread man had glitter all over him, I wanted to add a bit of glitter to the lettering on my sign. This was a technique that I learned years ago when I took a scrapbooking class, and I actually had this glue pen from that. What I'm doing is I'm taking the glue pen and I am just tracing the letters out, and it just gives you a really fine bit of glue over all of the letters. From there, I do have some glitter back from when I did this at that class, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of that glitter all over the O snap, and then take another piece of paper and dump the excess away. It helps you control your glitter that it's not everywhere, even though I feel like when you use glitter, it ends up being everywhere for days and days beyond the usage. But you dump the excess back into the glitter holder, and that way you're not wasting any either. From there, I am gluing down my gingerbread man. I'm using Type Bond. This is definitely my go-to for applying any of the clay molds or the resin molds. And I squirt just a little in the center, and then I take my finger. And the key here is you do not want globs on here. You want a really nice smooth layer. That way when you lay it down, it doesn't ooze out and create like a huge mess on the outside of your mold. I felt like the sign needed something, so I am using a bit of DIY's dark wax. I'm just going to wax the very edges of the sign and then just kind of come over to the front and add just a little bit of detail or like a brush of wax all the way around, and I think it just really grounds the entire sign. For project 2, I thrifted this cutting board a while ago, and you guys, look at that beautiful patina on the cutting board. I decided I was not going to paint this. I was just looking for the perfect project for this cutting board. I printed off a recipe off of I think I found it out on Pinterest maybe or online. It was just a picture of a recipe. What I did is I initially started by tearing off and just having it look like a really rough edge. I tore around the entire perimeter of the recipe, and what I plan on doing is decoupaging the recipe onto the cutting board, and I'm not going to paint the back white or anything like that. I want it to look really natural. Next, I'm going to lay everything out and figure out where I want to place this so I can decoupage it down. And I want to add a little gingerbread man right on top. And then the mold comes with a bunch of other little trinkets. They're actually little tiny candies, and I had excess resin, so I just popped them in there, and I thought this was a perfect project for that. Now I am using liquid patina from DIY, definitely my go-to medium for decoupaging. And just like I do with the recycled paper, I'm going to have a starter strip, and I lay that down first, and then I work my way down, making sure there are no wrinkles as I apply the whole paper. While that's drying, let's decorate up the gingerbread man. That's the great thing about this mold, is that you can decorate each of these little gingerbread men up just to match each of your projects. So I think that is so fun. We're going to start with his body again. I'm going to paint his head, his hands, and his feet, and then I'm going to start decorating his outfit. So for his overalls, I am using Gypsy Green from DIY Paint. I think it's the perfect green to match the green that was actually in that recipe. And his little buttons, I initially paint them yellow because there was a little bit of yellow in the recipe. In the end, I changed my mind and I covered it up with Summer Crush. Each of the little candies, I did use Summer Crush, and I painted the long ones, the Summer Crush totally, and then the white and orange ones, I just left the white as is, and I used that fine tip paintbrush and made them look like, almost like peppermints, except they were orange. So what would that be? That would be like an orange sickle. After they dried, I did seal them with Big Top. I also sealed the little gingerbread man with Big Top as well. I let everything dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back and we are going to complete this project. I'm using Type Bond again to adhere all of my molds. And again, super easy, just a little bit on the back, place them all, and I always let it dry completely flat until the Type Bond completely sets up, and then your project is complete. I did want to add a bit of twine. I just want to finish it off. I always like to add just a little twine to my cutting boards. This is my go-to twine that I found over at Walmart. It's kind of a heavy duty, just really nice thick twine. So I add a little bit and tie a knot, and now this project is complete, and I really love this transformation. For project 3, I thrifted this banner a while ago. It has been sitting in my stash, you guys. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, But in today's video, we are going to transform it using these little gingerbread men, and I had to cast a lot of them. For starters, all the images or all the banners that had an up north image, we are painting Little Black Dress from DIY. I'm letting that dry, and then I'm coming back and I'm sealing it with Big Top. So while the whole banner dries, I am now going to decorate up the little gingerbread men and dog. For starters, we're going to paint these little dogs gray, you guys. They are so cute. I love their little sweaters. I'm not even sure if that is the right color for this type of dog, but I'm rolling with it because the background of the banner is going to be either that red and black or just black, and I really want the gingerbread men and the dogs to pop off that banner. Next, I'm going to take all the gingerbread. I'm painting their heads, their feet, and their hands. I want to work in stages because there's so many of them. And this is what I found to be the easiest. Just paint all the heads, the feet, and the hands. Now the fun part starts. I am using Monet's Garden, and this is the perfect Christmas green, you guys. I love it. I used it a lot in my projects last year for Christmas, and definitely going to hit it hard again for this year. I think the green is going to really complement that red that is in the banner. So what I do is I just tackle each of the characters or the little gingerbread men. There's like a gingerbread husband, a wife, a son, and a daughter. And I'm going to paint them all very differently, but use that same Monet's Garden. After they're all dry, I am taking vintage linen from DIY Paint, and I am going to add a bit of detail to all the gingerbread men. And for instance, the little girl, I'm painting all of the little dots on her dress. I'm just going to add a dash of white to each one of those. I am going to add a bit of white to the husband's sleeves and to his buttons. It's just awesome that by adding just a touch of white, it brings or enhances all the details of these gingerbread. I decide I'm going to try to tackle glitter one more time. Looking at the banner, I think it would be kind of fun to have a little sparkle. So instead of dousing each of the gingerbread men with liquid patina, I'm almost like dry brushing it on. So I'm just lightly just getting the tops of the bristles slightly wet with liquid patina, brushing it on, and then using the other glitter, the secondary glitter from when I used to scrapbook. And that glitter is a little bit more fine, and this project seems like it's going a whole lot better than that first gingerbread man where it looked like he just had a fight with glitter. So I am really loving how these guys are turning out, and I hope you do too. The last step is laying them all out and gluing them on. And again, type on for the glue. I talked about how to evenly spread it out, but I really think these pop off of the banner. And now I'm deciding whether or not to sell this or keep it for myself, you guys, for my holiday decor. They are so super cute. For project 4, I'm slightly afraid to show you this project because of some of the backlash I got from the last book flip that I did. I am ripping off the covers of these old softbound books, and these are books that somebody gave me. They were going to throw them away, so I rescued them from being put in the garbage, and I am going to create a cool book stack with them. For starters, I'm using vintage linen, and I am going to paint all the bindings with the vintage linen. I also looked at the books, and a couple of them were not all perfectly sized. So what I did is I actually painted the bottom and the top of each of the books, and then I ended up painting the edges as well. I let them dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back and we're going to decorate these books up. Here the books are completely dry and ready to be decorated. I also have a gingerbread man ready for this project, and then a set of stamps that I've had for years, and this is the set of stamps that I use for all my book stacks. I love the letterpress set of stamps, but the stamps are just a little bit too big for the bindings of my books, and these letters are absolutely perfect. So I am using the thin mount, and the letters that I'm using are very similar to IODs, except they're just on a very small scale. So they're made out of that same type of clear rubber, and they stick to the thin mount just perfect as well. So just like I do with any of the other stamp sets, I line it all up. I ink it up with the IOD black ink, and I stand the book upright, and the thin mount is perfect because it's bendable and the books are just not completely flat, so it really helps me get a very good impression. Now, because the gingerbread, I had to use some of the same letters. I stamped out bread first, and now I'm stamping out ginger. And you can see too that because I had to use the G twice, I stamp out Inger, and then I go back and put the G on afterwards. So what I created today was Gingerbread Cookie Company, and if you have your own small font, you can create your own book stack as well. Now, I did decorate up my little gingerbread man already. I figured you guys saw me decorate enough, but what I'm doing is I am now going to take my twine and wrap it around the book stack. And I thought about doing it the other way, but the gingerbread man was very big already on top, and I want to lay him on there. I actually want to glue him to the top, so I twined just the edge. After that, I glued with Type Bond. Again, I glued my little gingerbread man on. After I laid him down, I was thinking, oh, I probably should have added a decorative piece of paper to the top. That would have looked really cool, but he was already glued down at that point. So I broke out some ribbon to just add a pop of color. For my fifth and final project, we are going to make a sign called Gingerbread Street. So I am using vintage linen, and I applied one even coat of vintage linen to the entire sign. I am also using the set of stamps called Adornment, and this is the first time that I've used them, so you do need to season your stamps by taking a very fine grit sandpaper and rubbing it all over the stamps, and it really preps them for the ink and usage for the first time. Next, what I'm trying to do here is replicate what a street sign looks like. And I've seen them where there's like lines around the perimeter. That's what I'm trying to replicate here with this set. I found this one long strip, and it almost looks like it has little bubbles, and I thought it is so sweet, and it kind of went with the whole gingerbread theme. So I ink it up using the IOD black ink, and I'm going to go around the entire perimeter and stamp that image. Now that I have it totally stamped, I am going to add the gingerbread street on here. And at first in my mind, it was going to be gingerbread drive, but at the very end, I changed it to street. But I am using my favorite set of stamps called typesetting. And I love this set because there's capital letters, lowercase, and numbers in here. So I'm going to combine the capitals and the lowercase because I thought the capitals would just be too big and it would not fit on the sign. So I am going to kind of centerize the lowercase all the way down. Now that I have it all laid out, it's ready to stamp. I'm going to take that thin mount chunk that I love using, and I'm going to line it up, pick up my letters, flip it over. I'm going to ink them and then again stamp it. And I'm going to work in sections all the way down because all the letters or several of the letters have to be used multiple times. So working in sections makes it very easy. And by using the edge of the thin mount and the edge of the board, when you pick up the letters, it really helps you keep it nice and even and straight. I thought the sign looked a little blah. Even though I had decorated up my little gingerbread man, I decided I needed to add a little bit of marquee. So I just took a little scoop of marquee out and I added a bit of water. I wanted it to be almost like a watercolor. And I thought maybe then by having it really thin, I would not need to stamp again. So a technique that I love to use is I stamp the image and then I paint and then I restamp over the image again. And it's like a double stamping technique. I thought because, the marquee would be really like watered down, you would still be able to see that stamped image. You could, but it wasn't as vibrant as I had wanted. So I ended up stamping over after the marquee had dried. So here the marquee is totally dry, and this is what I was trying to say is that I am re-inking that same stamp and then I'm just going to stamp over it again, and it just really makes that whole stamped image pop. After the entire sign is completely dry, I am sealing it with Big Top because anytime you use DIY paint, you do need to seal it. And so that's what I'm doing here. After the whole piece does dry, then I'm going to glue on the little gingerbread man that I already had decorated up. You can see him in the bottom right-hand corner, and this sign will be complete.
What did you think about that mold? I mean, honestly, you guys, there is so much detail in it. I love these little guys. They are so super cute. And actually, the whole time I'm doing the video, I had so much fun doing this because it did remind me of decorating Christmas cookies. I do have to say, I am not a very good cookie decorator. I mean, think about it. You don't get very great supplies to help you decorate. Always looks like kind of like a hodgepodge mess for me. But with these, I had my little brush and I was just painting away and I got in the lines perfectly. Well, a couple times a little outside, but I think they turned out great. And think of the possibilities and how you can decorate these for different projects. Plus, you guys, even with your grandkids or your kids, you can, what an easy way, you know, they can have their little gingerbread men all year long. So anyways, I loved it and I cannot wait to continue to create further with it. Like I said, I am going live on Monday and doing one final project with this mold. And I wanted to include it in today's video. I just did not get it done. And I thought, oh, what a perfect opportunity. The one reason what made me think of it, you guys, these guys are all wearing like little sweater, this one, and the cozy stamp from last year, if you remember, there is a little stamp that says sweater weather. And when I said that to my mom, she's like, did you see the skit from Saturday Night Live? Sweater weather, it's sweater weather, it's sweater weather. I was dying laughing. And I'm like, how can I incorporate that stamp with these? And we're gonna do it on Monday's live. So I hope you guys can join me for that. And you guys have yourselves a great weekend and we will see you Monday. Bye.